15 hours. September 5th, 1949. Cleveland Municipal Airport. Over 72,000 spectators are leaning back, eyes shielded against the glare of the Ohio sun. They are watching a machine that looks like a ghost of the Second World War, but modified for a new, lethal purpose. It is a P-51C Mustang, christened the Beguine. It is painted a deep, lustrous green. This isn't the aircraft that escorted B-17s to Berlin. The belly radiator, the Mustang's iconic profile feature, has been stripped away. In its place are two heat exchangers mounted on the wingtips. The fuselage is faired over, slicked back for pure, unadulterated speed. Bill Odom is at the controls. He is a man of records, an aviator who once circled the globe in 73 hours. He is famous, capable, and wealthy. But he is out of his element. Jackie Cochran, the legendary aviatrix, bought this machine specifically for Odom to race. The Thompson Trophy is the objective. This is pylon racing, a low-level high-G grind that punishes the pilot and the airframe. On the second lap of the course, Odom makes a fatal calculation. He cuts inside pylon number 3. To compensate, he yanks the stick toward pylon 4 to war. The Mustang, traveling at 400 miles per hour, snaps. It rolls inverted, its silver underbelly flashing for a split second before it plunges toward the earth. It doesn't find a field. It finds a house on West Street, in the suburb of Berea. The Lear family had moved in only 96 hours prior. Jean Lear and her 13-month-old son, Craig, are inside when the Mustang strikes. The explosion is massive. The house is instantly engulfed in a fireball fueled by aviation gasoline. Bill Odom is killed on impact. The tragedy is immediate, visceral, and public. Cook Cleland wins the race in an FTOG Super Corsair, but the cheers are replaced by questions. Cleland tells the press that Odom was the wrong man for the race. He was a cross-country pilot, a man of endurance, not a pylon-turning predator. This moment marks the hard stop of the golden age of air racing. The public's romance with surplus warbirds ends in the ashes of a suburban home. The Mustang, once the savior of the bomber streams, is suddenly a pariah. It is an obsolete weapon in a world trying to forget the violence of the last decade. The United States Air Force is turning toward the jet engine. The sleek, silver fighters of North American Aviation are being pushed into the shadows. Thousands of them are being towed into desert storage depots, their canopies painted over with latex, their engines drained of life. The world expects them to rust. The engineers expect them to be melted down into soda cans and bridge girders. But the P-51 is not finished. It is about to begin a second life that no strategist could have predicted. It will fight in the frozen valleys of Korea. It will become the backbone of clandestine air forces in the Middle East. It will serve as a wire cutter in the Sinai and a counterinsurgency tool in the tropics. The machine that won the sky over Europe is about to prove that a piston engine and a set of 50 caliber machine guns still have a place in the atomic age. The Berea crash was supposed to be the Mustang's funeral. Instead, it was the catalyst for a global diaspora. From the orange orchards of Israel to the jungles of the Philippines, the Mustang's real journey is just beginning. This is the investigative record of the P-51's survival. Late 1945, Cal Aero Field, Chino, California. The sound of victory is a heavy rhythmic thud. It is the sound of an 18-foot steel plate falling from a crane. It strikes the spine of a P-51 Mustang WWII. The fuselage snaps like a dry twig. This is the Great Liquidation. North American Aviation built 15,000 Mustangs during the war. At peak production, they rolled out 100 per week. Now, the assembly lines are dead. The United States military is drowning in its own success. Thousands of airframes sit in storage depots. They are scattered across 3 continents. The cost to guard them is higher than their value. The order comes down to destroy them. A high school senior named Ed Maloney watches from the fence. He has spent years building wooden models of these planes. He knows every rivet. He knows the curve of the laminar flow wing. Now he watches B-17s and B-24s broken like toys. The steel plates cleave the aluminum skin. It is sickening to see, he says later. He watches crews with acetylene torches. They slice through wings that once flew over Berlin. They cut the Merlin engines from their mounts. Nearby, a mountain of technical manuals is on fire. These are the blueprints of the air war. They are the collective knowledge of thousands of engineers. A worker looks at Maloney. He tells the boy he can take what he can carry. Maloney makes trip after trip. He loads his car with documents. He saves the secrets of the Mustang from the flames. This moment changes his life. He vows to save the machines, too. He has very little money. He scrapes together enough to buy one airworthy plane. He stores it. He trades it. He begins the collection that will become planes of fame. But Maloney is an outlier in a world of scrap. To most people, these are just piles of aluminum. During the war, a Mustang cost the government $51,000. Now you can buy one at auction for $1,500. That is less than the price of a new Ford. Some go even cheaper. Under the Inter-American Treaty of Reciprocal Assistance, hundreds are sold for $1 each. The price of a cup of coffee buys a fighter plane. The Swiss Air Force buys 130 of them. They pay $4,000 for each plane. They are replacing their old Messerschmitts with American surplus. The military brass believes the propeller is a relic. The Lockheed P-50 Shooting Star is the future. It can fly faster than any piston engine in level flight. The Mustang is a dinosaur waiting for the torch. It is a tool for a war that ended. No one in Washington sees a use for them. The storage depots at Kingman, Arizona and Coyote, Texas are filled with thousands of these ghosts. They represent billions of dollars in taxpayer investment. Now they are just inventory on a balance sheet. The desert sun beats down on rows of silver wings. They are wrapped in protective coatings. They are waiting for a purpose that might never return. The pilots who flew them are back in civilian life. They are starting families. They are going to college on the GI Bill. The mechanics are working in gas stations. The Mustang is a memory being erased by a crane. But the world is not as peaceful as it seems. The geopolitical map is shifting. The silence of the scrapyard is about to be broken. A new conflict is brewing in the east. The jets aren't ready for what is coming. The dinosaur still has teeth. September 1947, Rio de Janeiro. The heat of the Brazilian sun matches the intensity of the diplomatic negotiations. The Inter-American Treaty of Reciprocal Assistance is being signed. It is a pact designed to turn the Western Hemisphere into a fortress. For the P-51 Mustang, it is the beginning of a fire sale. Under this agreement, the United States government starts transferring hundreds of perfectly functional fighters to Latin American nations. The price is staggering. Each aircraft is sold for exactly $1. This is not a mistake in the ledger. It is a calculated move to ensure regional stability without the cost of maintenance. To the accountants in Washington, these planes are liabilities. To the air forces of the South, they are the pinnacle of technology. 3 months later, in December 1947, the Swiss Air Force looks toward the surplus depots in southern Germany. They are still flying pre-war Messerschmitts. They need an interim solution while they wait for jet development. They negotiate a deal for 130 Mustangs. The price is higher here, roughly $4,000 per airframe. It is still a fraction of the $51,000 it cost to build them in 1944. The Swiss mechanics find the aircraft in various states of repair. Some are war-weary, others have barely 20 hours on the clock. Switzerland will operate these machines for the next decade. They will use them to patrol the Alps until 1958. Back in America, the military is undergoing a fundamental reorganization. June 1948. The United States Air Force is now an independent branch. They decide to modernize their nomenclature. Since the 1920s, the letter P has stood for pursuit. It is a romantic, outdated term. The commanders want something that sounds more aggressive. They choose F for fighter. Overnight, the P-51 Mustang is redesignated as the F-51. The pilots don't care about the paperwork. To them, it is still the same Mustang. But the shift in name masks a growing disdain for the propeller. The top brass is obsessed with the Lockheed P-50 Shooting Star. They believe the age of the piston engine is dead. They think the Mustang is a relic of a slower world. They are wrong. They are looking at the Mustang as an interceptor. They are forgetting its versatility. They are forgetting its ability to loiter. In the Pentagon, the talk is all about Mach numbers and fuel consumption. The jets are fast, but they are thirsty. They require miles of paved concrete to take off. The Mustang can fly off a dirt strip and stay in the air for 8 hours. While the planners are writing off the F-51 as a museum piece, the political climate in Asia is deteriorating. The North Korean People's Army is consolidating power. The Soviet Union is providing them with T-34 tanks and Yak fighters. The jet pilots in Japan are practicing for a war they think will be fought at 30,000 feet. They aren't ready for the mud. They aren't ready for the short runways of the Korean peninsula. The dollar store fighters they are trying to get rid of are about to become the most valuable assets in the inventory. The Mustang is being pushed to the periphery, but the periphery is where the next war will be won. The bureaucrats see a surplus. The soldiers are about to see a lifeline. 4:00 hours. June 25th, 1950. The 38th parallel. The silence of the morning is shattered by the roar of Soviet-built T-34 tanks. The North Korean People's Army surges south. Within days, the Republic of Korea military is in full retreat. American forces stationed in Japan scramble to respond. They send their best. They send the F-80 Shooting Star. But a crisis emerges almost immediately. The jets are too fast for the war they are fighting. Flying from bases in Japan, the F-80s burn through their fuel before they even find the target. They arrive over the battlefield with only minutes of loiter time. They are useless for close air support. Worse, the Korean airfields are a disaster. They are short, rough, and cratered by artillery. A jet engine is a high-precision vacuum. It sucks up rocks and debris from these dirt strips. Engines flame out. The sleek new fighters are grounded. The military realizes its mistake. They need the Mustang. It can loiter over a target for hours. It can operate from the very mud that destroys a jet. It can carry 2 1,000-pound bombs or 6 5-inch rockets. The Air Force begins a frantic search. They pull Mustangs out of mothballs. They raid Air National Guard units across the United States. In the California desert, crews work under floodlights. They are stripping away the protective cocoon spray from stored airframes. They are flushing fuel lines and checking seals. July 14th, 1950. Alameda, California. The aircraft carrier USS Boxer is tied to the pier. On its deck, 145 Mustangs are lashed down. These are the F-51s the Air Force tried to scrap. Now, they are the only hope for the Pusan perimeter. The Boxer departs with an urgency that defies naval tradition. It pushes its engines to the limit. It crosses the Pacific in 8 days and 7 hours. It is the fastest trans-Pacific crossing by a carrier in history. By late July, the Mustangs are in the fight. The warbird that once hunted the Luftwaffe is now diving into the smoke of Korean valleys. It is hunting tanks. It is providing the hammer for the ground troops trapped in the Pusan pocket. The pilots find themselves in a different kind of combat. There are no high-altitude dogfights here. This is low, slow, and incredibly dangerous. The South Korean military is disintegrating. American volunteer pilots are assigned as advisors. They are leading ROKAF units into the fray. These men are flying 10 missions a day. They are exhausted. The cockpit becomes their world. They are dropping napalm on enemy convoys. They are strafing troop concentrations at treetop level. Every flight is a gamble. The Mustang's radiators exposed. One lucky shot from a North Korean rifle can end the mission. But there is no other choice. The jets are still stuck in Japan. The Mustang is the only plane that can live in the mud of Korea. It is the backbone of the United Nations defense. North Korean troops learn to fear the sound of that Merlin engine. They learn to fear the napalm most of all. The Mustang has returned to save a collapsing front. It is the only weapon that works in this environment. It is no longer an obsolete surplus item. It is the most critical fighter in the American inventory. The sound of the 12-cylinder engine is the sound of survival. This is the Pusan Response. It is the beginning of a long, bloody second life for the F-51. 7:00 hours. December 1950. A forward airstrip near Pyongyang. The temperature is 20 below zero. The mechanics are using blowtorches to thaw the oil in the Merlin engines. This is the liquid-cooled gamble. The P-51 was designed as a high-altitude thoroughbred. It was meant to fight at 30,000 feet. In Korea, it is being used as a mud mover. This is a role for which it was never intended. The heart of the Mustang is its Achilles heel. The radiator sits under the pilot's seat. It is filled with a mixture of water and glycol. A single .30 caliber bullet from a North Korean peasant's rifle can end a mission. If the radiator is punctured, the coolant sprays out in a white mist. The temperature gauge needles pegged to the right. The engine seizes within minutes. There is no gliding to safety. The Mustang becomes a 3-ton brick. Ed Schmood, the lead engineer at North American, watched this from California with horror. He knew his machine was vulnerable. He said, the F-51 was a suicide mission in ground support. One rifle bullet means the engine freezes in 2 minutes. The Air Force had made a catastrophic error. They scrapped the P-47 Thunderbolts after World War II. The Thunderbolt had a radial engine. It could take a 20mm shell to the cylinder and keep flying. But the Thunderbolt was gone. The Air Force only had the Mustang. The Navy kept their Corsairs for this exact reason. The statistics from the Korean combat records are chilling. 335 F-51 Mustangs are lost during the conflict. 264 pilots are killed or listed as missing. Of those losses, 172 are due to enemy ground fire. Only 10 Mustangs fall to enemy jet fighters. The rest are victims of accidents or the weather. The Korean winter is a silent killer. The Mustangs have no de-icing systems. Ice builds on the wings at low altitudes. An overloaded plane in a stall becomes a coffin. On the ground, the conditions are just as brutal. Pilots like Lieutenant E. Helalth are flying missions with failed radios. He finds 9 trucks and a half-track on a road. Without communication, he dives alone. He destroys the target but barely makes it back. This is the reality for the 18th Fighter Bomber Wing. The Royal Australian Air Force No. 77 Squadron flies Mustangs until April 1951. They suffer heavy casualties while hammering forces around Pusan. The South African Air Force No. 2 Squadron joins them. They earn a reputation for professionalism under fire. 12 South African pilots are killed. 30 go missing. These men are not hunting other fighters. They are killing tanks and supply convoys. The pilots of the 51st Fighter Interceptor Squadron develop a hybrid napalm mixture. They add thermite to the fuel. It burns hot enough to melt the rubber off tank wheels. North Korean soldiers learn to hide in haystacks and houses. They only move at night. They fear the silhouette of the Mustang above all else. Every sortie is a roll of the dice with a liquid-cooled engine. The pilots know the odds. They know the radiator is an open target. They fly anyway. The Mustang is the only tool they have to hold the line. It is a high-altitude fighter dying in the dirt. This is the cost of using the wrong tool for the right job. The Mustang is performing a duty it was never built for, and it is paying for it in blood. The era of the propeller fighter in American service is ending, but in Korea, it is the only thing keeping the Army from being pushed into the sea. This is the brutal reality of the 1950s air war. 172 ground fire losses tell a story of sacrifice that the jet age tried to forget. The Mustang is no longer a hero of the sky. It is a workhorse in the mud. 14:00 hours. June 1948. A humid orange orchard near Herzliya. The air is thick with the scent of overripe citrus, machine grease, and high-octane aviation fuel. This is the secret birthplace of a shadow air force. Israel has just declared independence, and within hours, 5 Arab armies have invaded. The new state has almost no wings. Its enemies fly British-supplied Spitfires and Hurricanes. The Israelis are desperate for a technical edge. They find it in the United States, but there is a significant legal hurdle. President Harry Truman has signed a strict arms embargo. Exporting military hardware to the Middle East is now a federal crime. Al Schwimmer is the architect of the solution. He is a New York-born flight engineer and a master of illicit logistics. He coordinates the purchase of 4 P-51 Mustangs from surplus stocks. To get them past us customs, the aircraft are dismantled. They are packed into massive wooden crates. The shipping manifests are carefully forwarded. These crates do not officially contain fighters. They are labeled as agricultural combines. They are marked as heavy equipment manufactured by International. No inspector asks why a piece of farm machinery weighs 3 tons or possesses a laminar flow wing. The first 2 crates arrive in Israel in September. Mechanics work under camouflage netting, hidden among the trees to avoid detection by Egyptian reconnaissance. They work through the night using hand-cranked winches and primitive tools. They are bleeding the hydraulic lines by hand. They have no factory support. They are relying on the technical manuals that enthusiasts like Ed Maloney saved from the fires in California. By late 1948, the Mustangs are the fastest predators in the region. They can outrun anything the Egyptians or Jordanians put in the sky. Wayne Peak is an American volunteer pilot. On November 20th, he scrambles his Mustang from Castina Air Base. He is hunting a Royal Air Force Mosquito. The British have been flying reconnaissance missions with impunity. They believe they are too high to be caught by the fledgling Israeli force. Peak proves them wrong. He climbs his Mustang into the thin air of the upper atmosphere. He intercepts the Mosquito and sends it into the Mediterranean. It is a clear message. The Israeli sky is no longer open for business. The Mustang's long range changes the geography of the war. It can reach Cairo. It can reach Damascus. It can stay over the target and return to base on a single tank. On January 5, 1949, Mustangs escort T-6 trainers into a final dogfight. They shoot down 3 Egyptian fighters. These are the Combine smugglers. They used a lie to build a nation's air power. The P-51 is no longer just a weapon of the Great War. It is a tool of survival, hidden in a wooden box, and labeled for the farm. It is the illegal heartbeat of a new Middle Eastern reality. 15:00 hours. October 29, 1956. The Sinai Desert. The heat haze ripples across the dunes. 4 P-51 Mustangs are racing westward. They are flying at treetop level. There are no trees here, only sand and telegraph poles. The Israeli pilots are flying so low their propellers nearly touch the desert floor. This is a mission born of desperation and cold logic. Israeli intelligence knows a secret. The Egyptian army depends on landlines. Their command and control runs through telephone wires. These wires stretch across the vast desert silence. If those lines are severed, the Egyptian front will go deaf. Radio communication is too unreliable in the heat. The telephone system is the nervous system of the enemy defense. Someone in a workshop designed a special tool. It is a lead weight attached to a steel cable. The cable hangs from the tail of the Mustang. The plan is to drag the weight through the wires. It should snag and snap the lines like thread. But as the mission begins, the devices fail. The weights break away during the high-speed transit. The pilots realize the cables are gone. They do not abort the mission. They do not climb for altitude. Instead, they push the nose down. They fly even closer to the ground. They are now measuring their height in feet, not hundreds of feet. They decide to use the aircraft themselves as the blades. They use the leading edges of the wings. They use the spinning tips of the Hamilton standard propellers. They are traveling at 300 miles per hour. A single mistake means instant disintegration. A slight twitch of the hand sends the aircraft into the sand. They reach the lines. They bank the Mustangs. The wings slice through the copper wires. The propellers shred the communication links. It is an act of almost suicidal bravery. Behind them, the Egyptian command structure collapses. Officers pick up receivers and hear only static. Forward units are suddenly isolated. They cannot report the Israeli advance. They cannot coordinate their retreat. Just as the lines go dead, Israeli paratroopers begin their drop. They are falling over the Mitla Pass. The confusion in the Egyptian ranks is total. The Mustang has been a fighter and a bomber. Now, it is a 12-cylinder scythe. It has found a role the engineers in California never imagined. It is cutting the connectivity of an entire army. The Mustang proved its adaptability once again. It survived the transition from the world of 1944 to the high-stakes desert warfare of the mid-50s. The liquid-cooled engine is still a risk. A single bullet could still kill the plane. But at this altitude, the Egyptians don't even see them coming until it is too late. The wires are down. The desert is silent. The path to the Suez is open. 9:30 hours. May 18, 1958. Over the Maluku Islands, Indonesia. The air is thick with tropical moisture and the smell of high-octane fuel. Captain Ignatius Duanto is scanning the horizon from the cockpit of his P-51 Mustang. Below him, the Indonesian archipelago is fractured by a CIA-backed rebellion. The agency is playing a shadow game. They are supporting the Permesta rebels against the central government in Jakarta. Duanto spots his target near Ambon. It is a twin-engine B-26 Invader. It is flying without national markings. At the controls is Alan Lawrence Pope. He is an American contract pilot working for the agency. Duanto does not hesitate. He rolls the Mustang into a steep dive. The Merlin engine screams as the airspeed builds toward 400 miles per hour. He lines up the crosshairs on the Invader's wing route. The 650 caliber machine guns erupt. Tracers walk across the silver skin of the B-26. Smoke pours from the right engine almost immediately. Pope's aircraft pitches down. It crashes into the sea. Pope bails out and is captured. This remains the only confirmed aerial victory in the history of the Indonesian Air Force. To the north, the Philippines is waging its own war. They operate over 100 Mustangs. They are the backbone of the post-war Philippine Air Force. Filipino pilots are not hunting other planes. They are hunting the Hugalahap insurgents. They are strafing communist guerrillas in the dense mountain jungles. They are flying low-level strikes against Moro rebels in the south. The Mustang is the perfect tool for this. It can loiter over a jungle clearing for hours. It waits for a signal from the ground. In 1953, the Philippine Air Force forms the Blue Diamonds. They are an elite aerial demonstration team. They use the Mustang to show the world their new republic has arrived. But the plane is more than a performer. Even the Swedish are using it for shadow work. They designate it the S-26. They fly secret mapping missions over the Soviet coast called Operation Fallon D. They violate Soviet airspace with calculated arrogance. They know the Mustang can outdive anything the Russians have in 1947. Across the world, Mao Zedong watches 9 captured Mustangs fly over Beijing during his victory parade. The Mustang is everywhere. It is the enforcer of the New World Order. It is a veteran doing the dirty work that the new jets cannot handle. This is the era of the counterinsurgency Mustang. It is the plane that bridges the gap between the colonial past and the Cold War future. It is a hunter of rebels and a violator of borders. Its second life is now written in mud and the jungle. 15 hours. April 1984. San Isidro Air Base, Dominican Republic. The air is a thick, humid weight, saturated with the smell of sea salt and burnt kerosene. On the flight line, a row of P-51 Mustangs sits in the shimmering heat. Their camouflage is faded by the tropical sun, but the aggressive shark-mouth nose art remains sharp. These are not museum pieces. They are the front line. These aircraft have outlasted the regimes that bought them and the pilots who first flew them. The Dominican Republic's relationship with the Mustang began in September 1948, when the first airframes arrived to be flown by Brazilian mercenaries. While the major powers were racing toward the sound barrier, the Fuerza Aérea Dominicana was building a piston-powered fortress. In 1952, they acquired 32 ex-Swedish F-51s, airframes that had once mapped the Soviet coast and now patrolled the Caribbean. For over 3 decades, the Mustang remained the backbone of Dominican air power. They were used during the 1959 Constanza invasion and again during the bloody April Revolution of 1965. During Operation Powerpack, as American forces intervened, a Mustang was brought down by ground fire, the final time the type would ever be lost in a high-stakes military intervention. By the early 1980s, the Dominican Mustangs were an international curiosity, the last of their kind in active service. In 1983, a Cuban intelligence vessel refused to vacate Dominican territorial waters. The response was not a missile or a jet, but a flight of 40-year-old Mustangs. The pilots pushed into a dive, their 650 caliber machine guns strafing the ship until it retreated toward open sea. Cuba's retaliation was a stark reminder of the era's reality. They sent MiG-21 jets to buzz Dominican airfields. The supersonic interceptors tore through the sky, their sonic booms mocking the obsolete fighters below. The Mustang pilots could do nothing but park their aircraft and wait for the modern world to leave their airspace. This humiliation finally broke the Dominican government's reliance on the propeller. The United States eventually provided a 37 Dragonfly attack jets to modernize the force. In 1984, 40 years after the first Mustang rolled off the assembly line in California, the Dominican Republic finally retired the fleet. They had outlived every other operator in the world. 9 of the survivors were sold back to American collectors, returning home as living ghosts of the greatest generation, having served longer than anyone ever dared to imagine. 15 hours. July 17, 1969. The airspace over the border between Honduras and El Salvador. The world is looking toward the moon. Apollo 11 is 3 days away from its historic landing. But here, the technology has regressed by 25 years. This is the soccer war. It is a conflict sparked by land rights and ignited by a World Cup qualifier. Both nations are fielding ghosts of a bygone era. The Honduran Air Force flies the Afaru Corsair. The Salvadorans fly the Cavalier Mustang Mark II Tartu Sur. These are modernized P-51s. They feature wingtip fuel tanks and upgraded Merlin engines. They have tall tails for better stability. They were sold as counterinsurgency tools. Today they are being used for air superiority. Captain Fernando Soto of the Honduran Air Force is leading a flight of 3 Corsairs. He is flying an F-5. His aircraft is number 699. It is armed with 4 20mm cannons. One of his wingmen, Captain Zapata, reports a problem over the radio. His cannons have jammed. Zapata is defenseless. Soto orders him to return to base immediately. As Zapata turns, he is hunted. 2 Salvadoran Mustangs spot the lone Corsair. They dive from the sun. The Mustangs are flown by Douglas Varela and Lionel Lovo. They think they have found an easy kill. Varela lines up on Zapata's tail. He fires his .50 caliber machine guns. The tracers streak past Zapata's canopy. Soto hears the frantic radio calls. He jettisons his bombs. He rolls the Corsair to a high-speed dive. He comes out of the clouds behind Varela. The Mustang is focused on its own kill. Varela does not see the bent-wing fighter closing the gap. Soto squeezes the trigger. The 20mm shells are devastating. They tear into the Mustang's thin aluminum skin. The liquid-cooled engine is shredded. Varela's aircraft erupts in smoke. It rolls into the jungle below. He does not survive. The second Mustang, flown by Lovo, breaks away. He tries to outrun the Corsair using the Merlin's speed. Soto stays on his 6-Terror. He fires again. The second Mustang is destroyed in a hail of cannon fire. Soto isn't finished. Later that same day, he encounters 2 Salvadoran FG-on Corsairs. These are Goodyear-built variants. He engages them with the same lethal precision. He shoots them both down. By sunset, Fernando Soto has 3 confirmed kills. 1 Mustang and 2 Corsairs. It is the last time in human history that propeller-driven fighters will kill each other in the sky. The aerial records of the 1969 conflict mark a hard end to an era. The Mustang was designed to sweep the Luftwaffe from the sky. It met its final combat end at the hands of its oldest rival. The war lasted only 100 hours. But for the P-51, it was the final curtain on air-to-air combat. Piston against piston. Merlin against double wasp. L. The sound of the Second World War echoed over the Central American jungle one last time. This dogfight proved the Mustang's vulnerability once again. In the low-level heat of the jungle, the radiator was still its heart, and the heart was easy to break. The 100-hour war was the end of the line. After this, the Mustang would never again hunt another aircraft in anger. 11:30 hours. September 1964. Sky Ranch, Nevada. The air at 5,000 feet is thin, cold, and deceptively quiet. Bill Stead stands on a plateau, rimmed by mountains. He is a boat racing champion and a visionary. He sees potential in this arid wasteland. He wants to resurrect the roar of the piston engine. The Thompson Trophy era died in 1949. Now, air racing is being reborn in the desert. Stead secures a deal with ABC Television. He convinces the casino owners in Reno that speed will attract tourists. The Mustangs emerge from their long sleep. They are no longer weapons of war. They are high-speed laboratory benches. These machines are pushed beyond the absolute limits of their original design. A wartime Merlin engine produced 1,500 horsepower. In the hands of the Reno mechanics, they are transformed. The engines are fed a volatile diet of high-octane fuel and anti-detonant injection. They are running extreme boost levels. The power output climbs toward 3,000 horsepower. This is double the rating the engineers at North American ever envisioned. The physics of the desert circuit are brutal. The crews clip the wings to increase the roll rate. They strip every ounce of excess weight from the airframes. They fill every rivet hole with wax, and they polish the skin until it is slick as glass. The cooling systems are relocated to the wings, or they are reinforced with spray bars. This is the birth of the unlimited class. Names like Strega, Voodoo, and Red become legends of the circuit. These aircraft are pulling 6 Gs in the turns. They are regularly exceeding 450 miles per hour. This is faster than the Mustang ever flew during the final push toward Berlin. The desert floor vibrates with the mechanical scream of the V-12. It is a sound that carries for miles across the Nevada basin. A new generation of pilots takes the stick. They were too young for the Great War. Now they are exploring the final edges of a 70-year-old design. The Reno Air Races become the premier event in the aviation world. The competition forces constant innovation. The Mustang remains the king of the desert speed shop. 9:00 hours. July 2015. Whitman Regional Airport died. Oshkosh, Wisconsin. The morning sun strikes the silver fuselage of a machine called Sierra Sioux Tutorial. This is a P-51 Mustang. It once served with the 402nd Fighter Squadron in the final months of the war. Its history is a map of the post-war world. It flew for the Swedish Air Force. It flew for Nicaragua. It passed through the hands of civilian owners in America. Finally, a team at Air Corps Aviation in Minnesota spent 3 years on a meticulous restoration. They confirmed that nearly every component was original to its 1944 construction. Only the engine mounts and flaps were replaced. It earned the Golden Wrench Award for its perfection. This is the new reality of the Mustang. It is no longer surplus. It is a $2 million artifact. Some examples with documented combat records sell for over $5 million. The economics of the warbird movement are staggering. In the 1960s, a Mustang was worth $30,000. Today, it is the ultimate prize for the wealthy collector. Maintenance on the Packard-built Merlin engine requires specialized knowledge. Shops across the country manufacture new parts to original specifications. The P-51 has also become a Hollywood icon. Tom Cruise owns an airworthy Mustang. He flew his own plane in the 2022 film Top Gun: Maverick. These aircraft preserve the markings of legendary units. They carry the red noses of the 4th Fighter Group. They display the checkers of the Tuskegee Airmen. There are now over 160 airworthy Mustangs worldwide. Over 200 remain on the American registry. Every flight is a high-stakes act of history. The exhaust contains the scent of 100-octane fuel and massive financial investment. These machines represent the fusion of high-end finance and historical reverence. The Mustang is a mechanical ghost kept alive by obsession. It is the defining symbol of American air power. It is an investment that breathes. 10:00 hours. May 2013. Over Lake Okeechobee, Florida. Doug Matthews is looking through the plexiglass of a Mustang named the Rebel. He is pushing the throttle of the Packard-built Merlin. The air is thinning. The blue of the sky is turning toward the blackness of space. He reaches 42,568 feet. It is a world record for a piston engine. The airframe is nearly 70 years old. It performs flawlessly in an environment where modern physics says it should fail. This level of survival is the legacy of one man. Ed Maloney died on August 19, 2016. He passed on National Aviation Day. He spent his life dragging these machines away from the cutting torch. Because of him, the scream of the V-12 still exists. His son-in-law, Steve Hinton, and grandson, Stephen Hinton Jr., continue the work at Kino. The factory in Inglewood closed in 1945, yet the Mustang refuses to remain on the ground. It has transitioned from a weapon of desperate war to a symbol of mechanical immortality. It survived the scrapyards of Chino, the Korean mud, the Sinai wires, and the Caribbean heat. Most machines serve a purpose and disappear into the footnotes of technical journals. The Mustang outlived its purpose 8 decades ago, yet it continues to find new ones. It is no longer just an airplane. It is a persistent, thundering echo of an era that refuses to end. The sound of that 12-cylinder engine is the final authority on the history of flight. Every takeoff is a victory over the scrap heap and the fire.